Hello guys, I'm John, I'm the geeky fanboy, and welcome back to Doctor Who Series 12. It's the series finale, episode 10, The Timeless Children. And oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about, which is why they're going to be spoilers all over the place, obviously. So if you haven't seen the episode yet, turn the video off now. Okay, there is a lot to mention and talk about in this episode. But let's take it slowly. First off, general impressions. Loved it. This felt like a proper series finale. High stakes, tension, drama, reveals, death, everything. Just everything. Honestly, this was so much fun to watch. I was on the edge of my seat almost the entire time because I wanted to know what would happen next, and with all the reveals and storylines we're playing with in this episode, there's just so much you want to know while you watch this, and you're constantly paying attention because there's just so much going on. Obviously, I also have to praise the performances of the actors, especially the performances of the Doctor and the Master, obviously. So Jodie Whittaker knocking it out of the park in this episode. I mean, she's a great actress in general, but especially in this episode, I think this might be one of my favourite performances of her as the Doctor. It's just there's so much going on there, all the emotions, the rage, the sadness, the confusion, the hopefulness to a certain degree. And like you feel that the Doctor is actually struggling in this episode, and how much is going on in her brain, how she has to come to terms with what she now knows, and that she's, I mean, more than confused by what the Master reveals to her. And I think Jodie Whittaker delivers a wonderful performance. Again, we can see like those kind of darker sides to her Doctor when she tells her companions, no, you need to go, I have to do this, I have to sacrifice myself. When she like even sort of freaks out and the Master like pushes him down, everything is like, tell me everything. And I'm like, yes, because we get this not from every Doctor, and we don't get this very often, but especially with like Jodie's Doctor. I already mentioned this in previous reviews. I always liked it when you could see that there's something more to her than that this easygoing nature she often just puts on, and you could see this very well put to the front again in this episode, and was wonderfully performed. And especially in her scenes with the Master, Sacha Dhawan is, oh my god, I just love this man so much. This might become my favourite Master. We'll see, I think about it, but his performance is absolutely amazing. You can see how much fun he's having, how much he's enjoying this to be like this sort of devilish mad scientist genius. I absolutely love that, and also with him that he's able to do this rage, which is on the one hand like very out in the open, but also on the other hand sometimes like very quiet, like when he, for example, when he starts telling the Doctor the story of the timeless child and all that. So I love his performance, and I love that, especially with this Master, you can just enjoy watching him. Like, you know he's a Master, and you know he's the antagonist, but you feel so good when you watch him. You have fun alongside with this guy. And yeah, I already said it, especially when it's just the two of them, and we get a lot of this in this episode, which I think is great. When the two of them are together, the Doctor and the Master, the dialogue, the tension, the acting, it's just absolutely fantastic and so wonderful to watch, because you get two brilliant actors with such great performances, and then you have these two characters who have so much history, and we learn even more about their history, and especially the Doctor's history in this episode. So that whenever these two was about just those two people, I just fell in love with every scene they were in. Which brings me to the companions, and you could argue that they don't really do that much again. I mean, they have their own like little storyline because they're pretty much separated from the Doctor for most of the episode. But since this is a very Doctor-heavy episode, especially also in regards to the Doctor's history, I honestly didn't mind, and we do get a couple of nice moments. I liked it when Ryan and the other two guys have to fight the Cybermen, and Ryan manages to throw the bomb, which was like a callback to an earlier episode. I thought that was nice, and I enjoyed how the actor played it when Ryan got like really excited he was able to do this. I thought, yeah, that was kind of cute, and I like the little moments we get between Yaz and Graham. I like that Graham does actually get this sort of emotional conversation with her. You know, I know it's sort of cliche. Did you say if if we die, let me at least tell you this now. I know it's cliche, but I like those kinds of conversations, and you can see that how emotional and honest he's being at that point. And I just like I very much enjoyed the acting, and I like the conversation that they were having there. Also because I don't think we get that many moments just between Graham and Yas without being like that emotional, because it was usually all about Graham and Ryan for obvious reasons. But I like that we, especially in this episode, but also throughout the past couple of episodes, that we get a bit more of just Graham and Yas, that we see how much their friendship has developed over the past couple of episodes. And I like that Graham isn't just reduced to comic relief; he actually has very good ideas in this, and they basically do I felt reminded of The Walking Dead in the first season. You know, they decide, okay, let's just kind of just dress up as Cybermen and then we can fool everyone else. Which is a bit silly to some degree, but I think it worked rather nicely, and was kind of an interesting concept, and it was a way to like bring the two groups together so that all the companions were back together again. So I thought like all the companion stuff was fine, even though it was a bit more in the background, but I didn't mind that because it did enough for the episode so that I was thinking, okay, I know that there is a Cyberman problem, there's high stakes with the companions because they have to deal with the Cybermen, and that's sort of happening in the background while we deal with this whole Time Lord thing. So I like how it was balanced, because it wasn't too much, but it was, you know, it was enough. So I think that how they dealt with the companions in this episode was fine. Okay, so the Cybermen in this episode, I have to admit I was wrong about the whole thing in the last episode, because I thought those flashbacks we were seeing with the guy in Ireland had nothing to do with the Cybermen. I thought I rather clearly thought it was about the lone Cyberman guy, but turns out it wasn't. And I like what they're doing with the Cybermen, like this concept of this Cyber Master Time Lord race is absolutely terrifying. I think because as soon as the Master said, "Ooh, I'm gonna create a new race," and I thought, every time someone says new race, especially in a sci-fi story, I think this is probably not a good idea. And yeah, I mean, Cybermen, Time Lords, and they can regenerate, and I honestly thought, holy this is not good. And I'm still not sure if I think the design of the Cyber Master race looks cool or a bit silly. Because I don't know, I like that they put on like the Gallifrey and like on their face, and you have the characteristic silhouette of the Time Lord gowns and everything, but you know, in combination with the body of a Cyberman, and you think that combining these two would probably not look great, but you know, I think it works. I think it works. You could argue that the Cybermen are being like pushed back a bit in this episode because they were like the primary antagonists in the first part of this two-parter, and now the Master just comes in and is like, how about we work together and I do my whole spiel. I mean, it's fine. Like, I honestly didn't expect them to like do like a super complicated thing. Now with the Cybermen, I thought, okay, now the Master's here, he's probably gonna do his whole thing, and then he kills the lone Cyberman. I thought, yeah, that's probably gonna happen, because why wouldn't he do that? And as soon as they like mentioned the Siberian, and I was like, and the lone Cyberman was like, as long as I'm alive, and I thought, you really shouldn't have said that, my friend. And yeah, he gets immediately killed afterward, and yeah, I already sort of kind of saw it coming that the Siberian would like go into the Master, and it works. I think that's fine, and because I was a bit worried about how they're gonna bring the Cyberman storyline and the Master storyline together, and I think it works rather well because I think it's very fitting that the Master would be like, oh, Cybermen are here, sure, let's work with that. I'll give them a call, and then he just kind of works his way through this. So I think this works rather well, and it's a very dramatic ending as to how this whole thing gets resolved with how the Cybermen and the Master are being defeated. And I do honestly hope that this was not the last time that we saw this version of the Master, because I really enjoy watching him. And I know, like, it's Doctor Who and it's sci-fi and it's a TV show. When no one is ever like properly dead until we either see a body or the production is like, yeah, no, we actually gonna use someone else. So if they decide to stick with the other, they're probably just gonna bring him back in a future series and gonna be like, oh no, he actually survived this under miraculous circumstances. I hope they do that because I want to see this guy again at some point. I really like him. So we'll see how they resolve that. Also, since we might as well now slowly go into the whole Time Lord stuff that's going on there, I honestly thought for like a good couple of minutes in the beginning that the Master might be lying, that he's sort of cheating, and this might not actually be like proper Gallifrey, or it's like all not real, an illusion or whatever, and then he's lying about the whole thing, or something else happened and he didn't actually destroy Gallifrey but someone else. But yeah, no. turns out he did all that. Yeah, so first off, let's talk about what the Master did. He pretty much destroyed all of Gallifrey, I guess, and killed all the Time Lords. And I honestly don't know what that's gonna mean for like future episodes, because I mean, I've never really been a big fan of that idea that the Doctor in was it Time of the Doctor saved Gallifrey. I was never really that big of a fan of that idea because I think it took away from the impact that the Doctor had to like commit genocide. But now I guess it's for reals, like for realsies. I mean, not Doctor obviously, but whatever the Master did. I mean, sure, we only see like the Citadel and the main city of Gallifrey, but I think also like how he explains it, the Master, I think we can be pretty sure that everyone's dead and everything's destroyed. And I think that'll be interesting because we don't know how the Doctor is going to take this, since the Doctor was always very emotional, as we know about, the fact that Gallifrey was probably dead and everyone and all the Time Lords had died. But now this is coming back. Like now this is a reality. Since all organic life has been destroyed, presumably on the whole planet, all the Time Lords are dead except for her, and maybe also not the Master if we're lucky. But yeah, I mean, Gallifrey's still there, but it's pretty much in ruins and everyone's dead. So I'll be interested as to seeing how this is going to come back, because considering the Doctor's past in New Who, we all know how emotional it is whenever Gallifrey and the Time Lords come up. So I hope this is going to come back at some point or another for Jodie's Doctor, that she'll have to think about the fact that she might actually be once again the only Time Lord in the universe. So that's quite some heavy stuff already as we go into the episode. But that's of course not the last big thing that we find out in this. And I think we might as well now talk about it. The Timeless Child. It has been mentioned a couple of times throughout the series already. And now they're finally telling us what the Timeless Child actually is. Turns out that the Timeless Child is sort of like the original regeneration Time Lord. I mean, the first time we meet the child, They are a girl, and they have the ability to regenerate. And they are found by this explorer who was one of the indigenous people from Gallifrey. And she takes this child, adopts her, and studies her. And then we find out that this child is able to regenerate. And so this scientist wants to find out, well, what's this whole regeneration deal, and what can we do with it? And she manages to extract basically the DNA for regeneration, and that helps to create this new race on Gallifrey, who eventually become the Time Lords that are able to regenerate. And first off, I think that's interesting because, I'm always interested in like history regarding Gallifrey, and we actually get to see what happened before the Time Lords. Since, we don't really know that much about that, and you would assume that they also have like indigenous people on that planet, and I like that we now see what actually happened. And the big thing is that it turns out the Master tells the Doctor that she is that child. So basically, the Doctor is the timeless child, which means that she has an infinite amount of times that she can regenerate. So for her, it's not just 12 times, since, as gets mentioned in the episode as well, Time Lords have this rule that they can only regenerate 12 times. But not the Timeless Child. The Timeless Child can regenerate over and over and over and over again. And turns out that's the Doctor. And I have to admit, at first I was like, no, that ain't happening. But, now that I've finished the episode and I've had a couple of minutes to think about it, I honestly think that's fine, and it might even be like a super fascinating thing. Also, like, it's not strictly speaking something that goes against canon, and it's actually something that sort of explains some things that have been mentioned not only in New Who but also very much in Classic Who. Because I actually remember that, because I remember sort of being like, when this whole Ruth Doctor thing happened for the first time, was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this, previous Doctor, incarnations, blah, 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 blah. But then I actually remember that this is something that already came up in Classic Who in one of the episodes with the fourth Doctor, where he battles someone, Morbius, the mind of Morbius or something, and they have like this battle of wits and minds, and we see the previous regenerations of the Doctor coming up on the screen, and those regenerations go even further, so they show faces that happened before William Hartnell's Doctor. So this idea of there having been previous Doctors before the first Doctor is, strictly speaking, not new. So I think this is actually sort of, it's an explanation for those faces. We have seen also a couple of other mentions we've got throughout the series. Like I already mentioned the Valiard in a previous review, who's also sort of another version of the Doctor. So this idea of there being incarnations of the Doctor that we are not aware of, or we have not seen, or that have been there ever since before the first Doctor, it's not new. So I think it's perfectly fine for New Who to go there, to actually say, okay, we know that this is a theory, or this is a premise that has been there for a while, we're gonna pick this up now. And also, just like in production terms, it's a good way of giving the show an explanation of never ending. They're just able to say, we never ever have to worry about the Doctor not being able to regenerate anymore, because they can just do that, so the show might as well go on forever. But smart. I think that's a good idea. I can see how a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this goes against canon, or this doesn't make any sense, or just feeling uncomfortable with this idea. Honestly, I get it. I was the same when the Ruth Doctor came up for the first time in the previous episode. I was actually surprised that she came up again in this, because I did not expect them to actually wrap this up with who is this Ruth Doctor, what does it all mean. I did not expect them to do that, but they actually do. She comes back and she says, well, she's probably one of the Doctor's previous lives that she doesn't remember, because the Doctor is being reset by Time Lords. This is also the thing we saw with the Irish policeman in the previous episodes that was actually connected to the Doctor, and it's basically the Doctor living through lives and then being reset by Time Lords, which is why Jodie Whittaker's Doctor doesn't remember the Ruth Doctor, for example. So that all checks out. And while I was a bit put off by this idea at first, I honestly don't mind, also because that opens up so many freaking possibilities of what you can do now in regards to casting, what kind of storylines you can do, what kind of multiple Doctor storylines you could do. I think Big Finish Audios are gonna have a blast with this, because they can basically say that we're gonna cast an actor we really like, then we're gonna do a Doctor series with them, because they can now say, well, this was probably the Doctor at some point or another, why not just do that? No, but I think this is very interesting also because they can do so many things story-wise. They can, sure, they could do like the Ruth thing all over again and be like the Doctor encounters a previous incarnation they don't know about. Or, you know, we could have someone from the Doctor's past, like from the past, even the Doctor doesn't remember, someone could come back and they'd be like, well, I finally found the Doctor, this is his great history I have to get, and the Doctor being like, I have no idea what you're talking about, May. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much you can do with this. So personally, I think I'm okay with it. It took me a while I was watching the episode to be like, yeah, okay, I think I can go with this, because I'm usually kind of suspicious when it comes to, you know, Gallifreyan history, and especially the Doctor's history, when they're starting to meddle with it. But as I already explained, it actually makes sense in regards to canon and the history of the Doctor and the history of Gallifrey. It delivers a lot of explanations for questions that have been around since the classic Who era. So I honestly don't mind, and I can understand why a lot of people would be upset about this for multiple reasons, honestly. I totally get it. But for me personally, I think it's fine, because it picks up things that a lot of people, I think, have already forgotten about or didn't even know existed. And it opens up so many possibilities for the character and for possible storylines in the future that are going to be super interesting to explore. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they will deal with this new side of the Doctor and how they will bring it into future episodes and future incarnations of the Doctor even. Okay, so that's pretty much it for my review of the series finale. I'm going to do like a whole ranking for series 12 where I'll tell you about my thoughts about the series in general. We'll probably get that up by next week, so you'll get all my wrap-up thoughts in that video. But for now, let me say I enjoyed this series a lot. There have been a couple of really great episodes and some performances in there that I was very happy to see and happy to discover a couple of new actors that I really enjoy watching now. And overall, I think this is a good wrap-up for a fine series. I think Jodie Whittaker outdid herself in this series, that she's now like very comfortable in her role as Doctor. I enjoyed watching her, and with all the new information, there's a lot to deal with now. There's a lot you can have fun with now, and I enjoyed watching it. Did you enjoy watching it? Do tell me down in the comments below. What do you think of the overall series, of the series finale, about all the new information that we now got about the Doctor? Put something down in the comments below. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.